Today, we're going to read The Adventures of Beekle, the Unimaginary Friend by Dan Santat. He was born on an island far away where imaginary friends were created. Here, they lived and played, each eagerly waiting to be imagined by a real child. Every night, he stood under the stars, hoping for his turn to be picked by a child and given a special name. He waited for many nights. But his turn never came. His mind filled with all the thoughts of the amazing things that were keeping his friends from imagining him. So rather than waiting, he did the unimaginable. He sailed through unknown waters and faced many scary things, but thinking about his friend gave him courage to journey on, until he reached the real world. The real world was a strange place. No kids were eating cake, no one stopped to hear the music, and everyone needed nap time. Then he finally saw something familiar, so he followed. He had a good feeling about this place, but he looked everywhere and he could not find his friend. He climbed to the top of a tree and looked out, wishing and hoping his friend would come. But no one came. He thought about how far he had come and how long he had waited, and he felt very sad. Then he heard a noise below. Hello? Her face was friendly and familiar, and there was something about her that felt just right. At first, they weren't sure what to do. Neither of them had made a friend before, but after a little while, they realized they were perfect together. Beekle and Alice had many new adventures. They shared their snacks, they told funny jokes, and the world began to feel a little less strange. And together, they did the unimaginable. So in this book, at the very beginning, our friend, Beekle, the imaginary friend, is just waiting for someone to come imagine him. Then he decides he's going to take matters into his own hands and he's going to try to find a child or a friend by himself. And that's what happens in the middle is he arrives at the real world looking for someone to become his friend. And then he gets, at the very end of the story, he does find his friend. Finally, after a long time of waiting. And then they have a really good time together and they start doing all sorts of fun things. So I want you to think about in this story how Beekle might have felt at the very beginning when no one was imagining him. He probably felt pretty lonely and sad and a little discouraged. And then when he was on his adventure, he felt really brave and courageous. And think about how he felt when he got to the real world. He was probably feeling scared, maybe overwhelmed, but maybe he was a little bit hopeful. And then think about how he felt when he was sitting in this tree and no one came. Then imagine what it must have felt like when he finally did meet this friend, and how it was hard at first and a little bit scary, but how over time they became friends, and then how it must have felt at the very end when they decided to go on adventures together. Think about how that must have felt for him. I bet he was really, really happy and had a lot of joy.